This video is part 2 of the fifth dimension explained. This is the math and motion of the fifth dimension. But all of these videos are part of a larger presentation where I explain why fifth dimensional astrology is the theory of everything. In each of the dimensions, we operate on different levels of consciousness. 3D is the fallen state cut off from soul awareness, or source. It is the quantifiable, finite mind that says 1 + 1 = 2. Fourth dimension, we begin to move back towards the source, our source, and we begin to believe that 1 + 1 doesn't always equal 2. And when it equals more, it feels miraculous. But in the fifth dimension, we know the universe isn't finite, only our consciousness was finite. Motion of the dimensions gives us another perspective. In 3D, things are more fixed and measurable. We notice length, width, and height. As we enter into the fourth dimension, we begin to notice movement over time, which becomes known as the space-time concept. Physicists say our universe is always expanding outward, symmetrically, at the same time, reaching and achieving maximal symmetry. But in 5D, we take our focus off the physical, and we notice the patterns of consciousness that created everything, and we see recursion, which Google defines as the repeated application of a recursive procedure or definition that follows the Fibonacci sequence. The math behind everything that we see as physical is known as it follows a couple of very key patterns that everything is actually created according to, which would be our consciousness creating it according to these very common patterns of recursion using the Fibonacci sequence over and over again. 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21, 34, or in a ratio concept, the golden ratio or phi of 1.618, which is a number also called like the divine portion or golden rectangle, which is a special number found when you divide a line into two parts so that the longer part of the line divided by the smaller part is also equal to the whole length divided by the longer part, which is kind of a complicated way of saying 1.618 gives you this golden rectangle. And if you look at the beginning rectangle of the 1, 1 here, and then you add the 2 and you take in the full rectangle, that follows the golden mean, or a golden rectangle. You take in the 3, you've got another rectangle that follows the same golden mean, and is still following the Fibonacci sequence. And you've got the 5, which encompasses this whole rectangle here, and then the 8 would bring in the bigger rectangle. And this would be the golden mean, the line in between the rectangle of the whole entire rectangle, encompassing the 8 in the Fibonacci sequence. This is a very special code that follows the path of least resistance in creating most everything in nature. Besides the science and the math concept, we have to look at the emotion and the motion of fifth dimension as well. The golden mean is what Aristotle said was the middle between two extremes, one of excess and the other of deficiency. If you recall, in the third dimension, I discussed the number line, where we were creating in duality. As we thought we were creating what we wanted over here that had a value, we were creating the opposite of what we wanted at the same time. Well, in the fifth dimension, we know how to arrive at the 0 point, so we're not creating in duality, we're not creating in karma, and we are therefore in the middle path. Confucius and Buddhists would say the way, according to the Tao Te Ching of the ancient Chinese, or the golden rule, love thy neighbor as thyself, as in the Bible. So putting the philosophical, emotional perspective to the way things are actually created in the recursive phi cycle, the way that we make things physical, is by following the path of least resistance, the middle way, or the golden rule, to love thy neighbor as thyself. The emotional path of least resistance is a state of compassion, which is a chemically inert state in which we have a completed emotional electron ring and we are no longer chemically reactive. So we're a completely stable element creating in no duality and no karmic consequence. Five-dimensional consciousness, you start to see that if the patterns are just multiplying what was at its original center or its core, or what the alchemist would call the prima materia, or what you might call our DNA, are just replicated and replicated over again to create what we see in our physical reality, then we see that size doesn't really matter. Is it really any wonder where scientists came up with a model for an atom? It's modeled after our solar system. In the fourth dimension, we see that everything in the universe expands. In the fifth dimension, we realize that it must also contract, according to Newton's third law of motion. Astronomers call it compression, where they reduce the number of bits required to represent the data using a recursive algorithm. The compression of the physical body, phi cycle creating our body, would bring us back to our DNA. In quantum mechanics and the nature of light, our DNA is the particle, the seed of thought or consciousness, replicated by recursive phi cycle to create the human body. But where's the wave? There is only one source of energy in our universe: the planetary bodies, our sun, stars, and their electromagnetic fields. So the wave to your particle is the time and space that you chose to incarnate. That creates your energetic pattern throughout your life. So the zodiac wheel, or the natal chart for each individual, is based on the time and space or city of their birth. And it dictates and gives them their unique perspective of the universe. And it's a set of energies that they carry with them throughout their lives. And as the planets orbit, making different geometrical angles, they create every change in that person's life. The circular nature of the zodiac wheel means it is replicatable as pi, and the golden mean of pi is 3.1, and on into infinity, or as Dan Winter would say, the 26th page of numbers. I don't know all the math for this, but Uranus told me to look at the angles of the chart using sacred geometry numbers, and I would find the fifth dimension expressed that way. I divided the wheel into 5 equal parts and came up with 72 degrees, of course, all the way around, and 144-degree angles that would make the perfect 5-pointed star within the chart. When I went online, it turned out other astrologers were already calling these aspects quintiles and biquintiles. But my awareness expanded in order to apply it to quantum mechanics and to explain it in the theory of everything. With the help of soul-level memory in the fifth dimension, you can probably arrive at these same conclusions that I have. There is no such thing as linear time because no celestial body orbits in a straight line. And if our universe is expanding, it is also contracting so quickly that we don't detect it with our conscious mind. This means our physical reality is a hologram of our consciousness and is more like a film strip than anything else. And using the emotional golden mean of compassion, achieved via soul awareness, non-judgment, no fear, detached emotion, coherent emotion, I can, on quintiles and biquintiles, magically change my recursive reality as the planetary energies enable at these times. And that is my Merlin mind. The next segment will be the Merlin mind, where I'll go into more of the astrology aspects of the fifth dimension so that you can work with the timing of these quintiles and biquintiles and learn how to create your own changed reality.